go hand in hand. We see over and over again the difficulties when it doesn't happen. We see that with Findlay Creek, specifically as far as the south is concerned, the southeast part of the city, and the difficulties that have happened as a result of it. A former speaker talked about the traffic situation further north as a result of all this development, and south to Rideau, and it included the extension of Earl Armstrong. I think we're suffering a little bit because of that at this time, and I would not like to see development to go ahead without having the appropriate infrastructure. So what does that mean? We can't really open the TMP in terms of it updated until 2020, I believe it is, 2019, we start on it. I think there is a case to be made because staff had previously identified the urgent need to do the road work that I just mentioned much earlier. There may be an opportunity to ask Council to provide an opportunity to open up the TMP to have these particular provisions accelerated that we're all talking about. We have now opportunity for additional funding to be brought into this equation to make it affordable. Both the Hard Rock is prepared to discuss a contribution. I think the former speaker talked about the money flowing from the casino to the city, that a portion of that money could be used as well. And I think the city could also find within its billion-dollar budget that isn't added, going directly to LRT, some of the money to help out as well. So we're very much in favor of having development and infrastructure go hand in hand. And as far as Findlay Creek is concerned, I think we missed the boat on that one a little bit. So we need to fill that hole and to finish those projects much earlier than the revision to the staff's recommended affordable TMP back in 2013 be reinstated, that staff recommendation. So we're looking forward to moving along with that particular action. Thank you.
Thank you. And a question from Councillor Deans.
Actually, hi, Mr. Belsner. Nice to see you here. Actually, my question is to staff arising from, is that okay? So Mr. Belsner suggested that he believes the TMP is to be opened in 2019. I thought it was actually like 2022 because it's been delayed. Can somebody?
Let's have Vivi Chi come up. I think we're going to start the process in 2019, but yeah, it can be a 2-year process.
I think it's been delayed.
The OP has been delayed, but I think we're going to do the TMP before the OP.
Chair, as my GM mentioned at Transportation Committee yesterday, we have to wait until the Confederation line opens first, and then because that will really change how people commute and get around, and then we need some time for the traffic patterns to settle. And one of the first steps that we do for an update of the transportation master plan is an origin destination survey, which is typically done in the fall when everybody's back at work, school is back, university students are back. So and the weather is still nice so that we can capture the walking and cycling modes. So that has to be done. Data collection, verification, so it takes a while. So the TMP itself, we are looking at doing some background work now, but the actual start of the TMP won't likely be until sometime in 2020, and I believe that's what my GM had mentioned yesterday. And when that process begins, there's going to be lots of notification. Committee will find out our scope of work and to look for. To work on, so and there's plenty of consultation. Know that the I do know that the prioritization of projects is of interest to many people. We've heard that. And once again, we will be looking at the whole transportation master plan through the affordability lens.
Right. And I understand that timing of, for example, the widening of Bank Street will be very important consideration in the TMP. But there would be nothing to prevent a front-ending agreement to be inked between the proponents in advance of an updated TMP, would there?
The timelines of the TMP still stand, so if there's a funding agreement that's established, it would go through that process according to all our bylaws and the financial component. Yeah.
So one doesn't necessarily dictate the other. There are separate agreements.
There's separate agreements, but they need to comply with the DC bylaw where the projects land.
So does that mean there could be a front-ending agreement before the TMP is resolved?
Mr. Chair, my understanding is that Bank Street is identified as a project in the DC background study, and that is a project that is able to be moved forward via front-ending agreements. The Earl Armstrong extension is not identified in the DC background study, so that would have to get introduced into that. There's a potential to do that next year in May of 2019 when we have to come back with a new DC bylaw. So that's something that's definitely in play, but at this point in time, Earl Armstrong's not in there. My understanding is that Bank Street is in there, so there's the opportunity for that one.
All right, thank you. And then Councillor Blades has a follow-up question from that discussion.
Thanks very much. I guess it's relating to Bank Street or the road situation in the south end. There may be a change to our version of the Transportation Master Plan as a result of the extension of the Trillium Line at a much more rapid pace than the current TMP envisions, and that is obviously going to need to have some impact on road infrastructure, as the motion approved by Council to evaluate extending the Trillium Line south faster specifically said language about prioritizing transit over road infrastructure in order to accommodate that accelerated extension. So I'm wondering, how can we advance a DC project that's in the TMP today that may not need to be in the TMP because we're building a train system that we weren't planning to build when we approved the TMP. Do you see where I'm going?
I do. And I think the question is about schedules and timelines, because the extension of the Trillium Line further south does not negate the need for all of the other roads in this area that we had, because both are identified in the Transportation Master Plan. Yes.
But the extension of the train could change the timeline of the road, as it has in other parts of the city, and therefore change the DC schedule and the repayment options.
Until we do the Transportation Master Plan update, we have to stick with the schedule and the background study for the DC bylaw.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Belsner? Seeing none, thank you. So our final speaker is the applicant. So it's Mr. Jeff Hook from Hard Rock, Andrew Wright from Rio Carlton Raceway, and Jack Sterling. I'll invite you up. I'm not sure if you want to actually present or if there's any questions for you, but come on up. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. So I'm Jeff Hook. I'm the Executive Vice President of Development and Marketing for Hard Rock. I've been with the company for about 10 years. In fact, this month, 10 years. And I've been in the industry for 24 years. And in the last 10 years, I've seen the Hard Rock business grow from about 133 Hard Rock venues in 45 countries to 225 venues in 75 countries. So the Hard Rock is a big business. It's not a big casino business necessarily. So of those 225 venues, only 11 are related to casinos. So we're really known more for entertainment, and that's the way we think about this project. We're thinking about an entertainment destination here that has a casino in it as well. And when you look at the components that we're talking about today, those are really more related to the things we want to put around the casino. So we're continuing to expand in emerging markets. We certainly love Ottawa. We think Ottawa's strong and growing economy makes it an attractive destination for companies like ours to create jobs and stimulate growth in driving tourism. We pride ourselves on being a strong community partner. In our experience, partnering with strong local businesses is key to our success. So we really only own about 75 venues of the 225, and we're in local partnerships in 150 different venues. And those partnerships all look different. And that's really an approach that's worked well with us to combine our breadth and our global business expertise with local business savvy and community knowledge and relationships. So when we were presenting with the opportunity to bid on the privatization for the OLG, we were thrilled to partner with Andrew and team through the Rideau Carleton Raceway, mainly due to their deep roots in the community. So over the last 55 years, we believe that they've demonstrated a strong commitment to the local community, to horse racing industry, and really to developing a sustainable business model with an eye for growth. So together, luckily we put together a winning strategy, and we were selected as the preferred proponent for Ottawa Area Gaming Bundle. It offers us an opportunity to invest in the project that we're going to talk about today, and pending approval of the zoning application, our joint investment of over $318 million, although I've heard 350 a few times today, we're talking about $318 million, that allows us to really develop a dynamic tourism destination. So this destination will combine the heart and the soul of the Hard Rock brand. So it features the best in live music. When you hear about the Hard Rock live music venue, gaming, entertainment, we want to add a hotel, obviously, to house customers, at the same time enhancing the horse racing program and gaming features that Ottawa residents love. So our application today is really limited to four things. One is the addition of a hotel. Two is an increase to the permitted building height. Three is the addition of a theater as a permitted use for Hard Rock Live. And lastly is the approval of 20 additional gaming tables, bringing the total number up to 55 by the end of Phase 3. So at the end of the construction phases, the Hard Rock Ottawa project will see the current Rideau Carleton Raceway Casino facility completely rebranded. So we haven't put our brand on the door yet, but we will in the second phase. It will include some of the world's greatest music memorabilia that Hard Rock is known for throughout the world, 4 new restaurants, including a Hard Rock Cafe, a new Hard Rock Hotel, a rock shop where we sell collectible merchandise that people like to wear. It's hard to go to any airport in the world and not see somebody wearing a Hard Rock t-shirt. And then we'll have live music, not just worldwide entertainers, but also local entertainers as well. And once we're complete, we believe the Hard Rock Ottawa will provide Ottawa residents and tourists with truly unmatched entertainment. It should be one more reason to love Ottawa when it comes to tourism. So we're sincerely committed to acting as strong corporate citizens as well. And we'll do this by ensuring responsible gaming practices, and that we meet those, and that also we work our philanthropic efforts that Hard Rock is known for worldwide here in this community. So we're proud participants when it comes to responsible gaming of the top award for responsible gaming in the United States through the American Gaming Association, which is the Corporate Social Responsibility Award, for our leadership in championing treatment as well as therapeutic support to those who need assistance. We're committed to working with the OLG, so we have a very strong relationship right now with the OLG. We think they do responsible gaming truly at a cutting-edge level, and we're learning from them some of their ideas. We want to work with the City of Ottawa, the Ottawa Public Health, and the entire community to ensure the responsible gaming destination here in Ottawa. In addition, from Hard Rock's perspective, we have a deep commitment to corporate philanthropy, and that's really helped us to support local communities wherever we operate. As an example, our Hard Rock Heals Foundation funds locally driven music programs. In 2016, the foundation gifted over $1.3 million to charitable causes around the world, including more than 30 grants to community-driven music programs. As a member of the Ottawa community, we are committed to continuing and enhancing both the Hard Rock and Rideau Carleton Raceway's heritage of supporting local education, nonprofit, charitable, and community programs. Our joint partnership is committed to developing world-class facility while ensuring the highest standards of customer service and responsible gaming practices are met. We look forward to becoming part of the Ottawa community and the business industry for years to come. Thank you for your time this day.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have questions for Hard Rock, for the applicants? Yeah, Councillor Deans?
I understand you're proposing 55 tables and 2,000 slot machines. Can you ever envision the day that you would be asking for beyond those two numbers?
So for now, and looking into the future for the period that we have with the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation, that's what
it's 20 years?
Yeah, that's what we believe we need right now based off of kind of current demand estimates and looking into the future with obviously our experts. So we don't envision at this time asking for more.
But there is potential that you will ask for more.
I mean, there's always a potential that, let's argue that all of a sudden there's this, exodus of everyone from the United States and moves to Ottawa. For unforeseen reasons, obviously, would create unforeseen, opportunities.
Thank you.
And should, just on that, should there be an initiative to increase in the future? I know Councillor Harder and I worked on a motion that will come at Council to ensure that all future decisions on the number of gaming tables would come to Council. It would be a Council decision that would increase that in the future. Councillor DeRoos.
Thank you both for being here. I really appreciate the partnership that you brought to our community. I will be missed if I don't personally thank both of you taking the time. I know you're busy and you're traveling everywhere. You're coming from Florida to visit with us this next few days. And Mr. Wright and your wife Tori and your father-in-law will be very proud moment for him to see you sitting here and speaking on behalf of Rideau Carleton. I know your dedication and your support to our local community. It's been tremendous support, and I know that you promise and you committed to continuing the support of our community. And we're looking forward to have you in our community. We welcome you in our community. I know there's a lots of concern around this, and your team, working with our city staff and our council colleagues, demonstrated great positive attitude on making sure your establishment will be built in our community with sufficient road and making sure, because I understand and I know that from our conversation before, Hard Rock is not going to spend so much money in putting an historical and great venue in our community without proper transportation and without proper road. But from 1972, Rideau Carleton has been a great corporate citizen in our community. We're looking forward to keep forwarding, working with this partnership. And I will be missed if I don't mention most of the speakers. They come here today because of the hard work that Rideau Carleton's been working with the community. I don't want to miss. There is so many letters of support, and I know, thank for them that they're not going to all speak. We'll be here all day. I want to name a few. Osgood Youth Association. We got the Falcon Ridge Golf Course. Their owner, Mr. Spratt, just left. He is also your neighbor. They send letters of support. Riverside South Community Association. We have letters from Ottawa Tourism, from Greeley Community Association, and Osgood Care Center, and Findlay Creek Community Association. This is demonstrate today your hard work and collaborating with all our community and supporting our community. On behalf of our resident and our city, we're going to thank you for these, for being a great partner and continuing support to our community.
Thank you very much. We're truly honored to be here. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
And Councillor Deans did have something else. Sorry.
Actually, I think my other question is for Mr. Sterling, the consultant. Can I ask, is that okay?
Of course, yeah.
Actually, I think I have a couple questions. One is, I just wanted to say thank you for, well, let me start by saying that Obviously, Blossom Park, there's a heightened sense of concern about the traffic that's shortcutting through that residential neighborhood. And the shuttles were also shortcutting through that residential neighborhood. And I spoke to Mr. Sterling about it, and they have now been rerouted onto a more appropriate route. But I just wanted to ask Mr. Sterling if he could give us an undertaking in good faith that they will continue to use a more appropriate route and not shortcut through that residential neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Deans, absolutely. When I became aware of the fact that the shuttles were using portions of Albion, we made the request that they reroute. They have rerouted, and we will undertake to ensure that they stay off that stretch of Albion that you're concerned about.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that. And the other thing is, just on the motion that Councillor Darouze has introduced on my behalf about the ATM, I received a letter signed by Richard Gardner, Director of Treasury, from Rideau Carleton Raceway and Casino. And basically, I'm just going to read a little bit of it. It says, Hard Rock understands that the city will be undertaking an area traffic management study for Albion Road between Bank and Leicester. If this traffic study recommends road or other modifications or improvements to deal with traffic concerns arising from the expansion at the Albion Road site, Hard Rock Casino Ottawa will consider in good faith funding the reasonable costs of such improvements and modifications. So I just wanted publicly for you to acknowledge that to the extent that there's traffic impacts resulting from the expansion at Rideau Carleton, that your client is willing to enter into negotiations with the city to implement area traffic management modifications.
That's correct, Councillor Deans. We have been working with staff, as been touched on today, on a number of transportation issues with respect to the area. We're aware of conversations with you and others with respect to the requirements for the area traffic management study. And as we've indicated in writing to you, we are prepared to participate in that study, and where appropriate, work with the city and staff on implementing some of the recommendations of the study.
Thank you for that answer, and I just want to say publicly that Mr. Sterling's been very helpful to work with on this file, and I really appreciate the cooperation that you have shown on behalf of your clients. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Deans. Any questions? Just want to make a comment?
Yeah, a number of these points have been covered, but I thought, Mr. Chair, I just conclude this meeting. Thank you for your time, councillors. My name's Andrew Wright. I'm a director of Rideau Carleton, and obviously a partner with Jeff Hook and the Hard Rock Enterprise. And obviously this expansion request is near and dear to my heart. My father-in-law, Warren Armstrong, opened Rideau Carleton over 55 years ago, and it's a passion of his and my family to watch it grow over the years. In 1962, the vision was to develop unique standardbred harness racing. Plans included the 5/8 track that's there now. It was the first one in Ontario, and also nighttime racing. It was an exciting time for the horse racing industry. It really was a cutting-edge thing, obviously, for Ottawa and for the nation's capital. And over the years, we've worked to create a sustainable model for racing in Ottawa, and we've always looked for opportunities to modernize our offering and programming in our facilities. In 2000, as it's been mentioned, the provincial government introduced slots for racing for the 18 tracks in Ontario to save the racing industry. It was on life support. And while it certainly succeeded in saving racing, it also gave us a vision of what might be possible for our site in the future. The province in 2012 announced the opportunity to modernize gaming and driving on private sector expertise and innovation, and we at Rideau Carleton recognized this was our chance to further improve our horse racing programming and elevate the entire entertainment experience for our customers. In our minds, Ottawa deserves a state-of-the-art entertainment destination as much today as it did in 1962. In our search for a partner with gaming expertise, Hard Rock became the clear choice. Not only is it a global iconic brand, but one with a proven track record of success. And equally important to me, their corporate values, their honesty, integrity, and professionalism were very complementary to the legacy that Warren Armstrong established at Rideau Carleton. Also critical to us was Hard Rock's understanding of the horse racing industry. They have a couple of facilities in the U.S. where they've got good experience, and this gave us further confidence. Our partnership with Hard Rock will ensure the lasting legacy of horse racing in Ontario, in Ottawa. Our successful bid for the Ottawa Gaming Bundle has allowed us to work with Hard Rock to develop an expansion plan that will create an entertainment destination Ottawa residents can be proud of. The expansion project will generate significant benefits for the City of Ottawa. Much of these have been touched upon, but let's go through them. And of course, our rural economy and the province of Ontario. We anticipate that the future home of Hard Rock Ottawa will recapture much of the estimated $62 million that Ottawa area residents and tourists spend across the river in Quebec at their gaming facility. So that's a positive, obviously, for the province. In addition, the expansion project will help us create a sustainable business model for generations to come and will continue to create jobs for rural Ottawa and beyond. After Phase 3 is complete, the number of direct on-site jobs is projected to double from the current 400 to 880. The economic benefits to Ottawa are clear, with annual revenue projections expected to reach over $12 million for the city once fully operational. Our history of being a good community supporter is important to my family and our partnership, and I think Warren Armstrong's dedication has been mentioned before. We've been greatly encouraged by the voices of support from major Ottawa organizations, including Ottawa City, Chamber of Commerce, Invest Ottawa, the Shaw Centre, Ottawa Tourism, and the UI Centre, in addition to the many local community organizations, George, that you referenced. Improvements under Phase 1 are already underway. We continue to upgrade the look and feel inside the track, as well as enhancements inside the buildings, as well as enhancements to the track. As a member of the Ontario Standard Bread Alliance, we are working with our industry partners and stakeholders to ensure we are delivering improved efficiencies for the horse racing business. And then John mentioned the increased handle over just the last couple of months. And the province of Ontario's recent announcement to commit to a long-term funding agreement with horse racing sector is an important economic assurance, as I say, John mentioned, for our rural community, and signals the support of our industry's business and its growth potential. Our strong ties with community neighbors, our loyal employees, who are a couple of nice enough to come today, have been the utmost importance to Rideau Carleton Raceway, and they will continue to be at the future home of Hard Rock Ottawa. We take great pride in the strength of our relationships with residents, community associations, industry stakeholders, and local businesses. And that's really what this application is all about. It's about modernizing our business, our facility, and the entertainment options for the people of Ottawa. We want to create something we can all be very proud of. Ottawa deserves to have a modern and dynamic tourist destination that will create secure jobs and offer crowd-pleasing live entertainment for years to come. And that's why we appreciate your support in our application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wright. So no further questions for the applicant. Thank you.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, just a couple of points.
I don't know. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry?
Go ahead. I was joking. Just go ahead.
Oh, okay. First of all, thank you for your time today. Obviously, we're here in support of the report and the recommendations. But I just want to state for the record, this, as everyone knows, is a very well-known application. It's received a lot of attention. We have been working with the staff, the ward councillors, members of the community on this application, and I want to express our appreciation to John Smith, Allison Hamlin, Colin Simpson, and other members of the staff who have participated in our open house in evenings, have answered our questions. I would like to say we've answered their questions, but at times I think we've been pretty frustrating for them trying to answer their questions. But certainly working with the staff has resulted in a report which obviously the applicants can support. We look forward to hopefully the committee and council support of this application. And I'm just here to make those comments and answer any other questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. So we'll move to questions to staff. So, Councillor Deans.
I see Mr. Scrimger in the audience. Could you ask him to come down? My first question's for him.
We have a number of staff, and obviously You saw Vivi, Chi, and Colin Simpson from Transportation Planning, and of course Pastor Grimsher from our transit group, and there's other staff in the room as well for any questions that come up about the application. Mr. Grimsher, thanks.
Obviously, I've been interested in ensuring that we have reasonable public transit to this site, and the applicant has decided to continue running a shuttle service from the Greenboro station. So my question to you is, would it be possible to add that shuttle service into the City of Ottawa's transit planners so that if I'm coming from Barrhaven or Orleans or anywhere else and want to find my way to the Rideau Carleton facility, that I could do a trip plan on the transit planner?
Mr. Chair, yes, we believe that's possible. It'll depend on cooperation, of course, with the owner of that and operator of that service, what information they can feed us, what form it's in, whether we can incorporate it into our database properly. There might be limitations on the depth of the information because it's not integrated right into our own operating and control system, but we would go as far as we can with the technology we have and with the information we get.
So, Mr. Chair, would it be appropriate to give a direction to staff to work with the proponent to try and line up the transit planning so that we can make sure for the public it's as seamless as possible in getting people to that site?
Yeah, staff can consider that as direction from this committee.
That would be fine.
Thank you. My second question is just a follow-up on something you said, Mr. Chair, and pertains to, you said that you would work with Councillor Harder, the chair of the Planning Committee, next week to ensure all gambling expansion, the site goes to Council for approval. But my understanding is different than that. My understanding from the city solicitor is that that would be possible for the tables, but it would not be possible for slots, because unless there was a cap embedded into the zoning bylaw on the number of slots, their council would be loath to put a cap on it. So could legal just confirm that?
And just to clarify my comments, I did specifically say gaming tables.
Okay, so slots, but there is no limit on slots.
There currently is no cap on slots.
There's no cap on slots embedded in the zoning bylaw, and so council could not prevent the expansion of slots at that site unless they were to embed a number. Is that correct?
For the record, Tim Mark just said yes, Mr. Chair.
In a quiet voice. Those were all my questions.
Thanks. Yeah, I think the slot cap, obviously there's never been a slot cap in our zoning. The cap on slots that exists today is imposed by the OLG at 2,000. Councillor Drews?
I just want to follow up on Councillor Dean's. When you say about working with the applicant concerning the shuttle and the transit, that's not going to impact the taxpayer in the rural area for paying any extra transit or any extra fees? I just want to make sure that it's clarified.
Mr. Chair, the question I was asked is whether we could integrate information about the service that they would be operating at their cost into the information we provide. We can do that integration within our current budget. If there were any large investment required, of course, we would seek approval for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Blais, questions to staff?
Thanks. As part of that evaluation for enhanced transit, are we also going to be looking at expanding the urban transit area to incorporate the lands where the Hard Rock is going to be located to ensure that benefiting residents and benefiting commercial enterprises are paying the same taxes as everyone else?
Mr. Chair, we're not looking at expanding the urban transit area. I think the system that Hard Rock has put in place with the shuttle services has been working. And I think if we can get that integration, as Councillor Dean suggested, in terms of information that would be conveyed, I think is really where we want to go. I mean, the expansion of transit in an urban expansion area really needs to be dealt with as part of an urban expansion process, and that's not part and parcel of what we're doing.
How can we evaluate adding OC Transpo service without expecting the people who will benefit from that added service to pay their fair share in taxes?
The intent is not to add OC Transpo service. The intent is to integrate information into the OC Transpo information on the private shuttle service provided by Hard Rock.
So this area of the city, I think, currently plays OC rural area B. Just they pay A, the smaller transit.
Yes, Mr. Chair, you're right. It's rural transit area A, so that's funding for the rush hour connection service into the central part of the city, plus the funding for paratranspo service.
But on the south side of Mitch Owens, as the councillor is indicating, they pay B?
That's correct. It's B, which is paratranspo service only.
Sure. But given the proximity of transit, how can we continue to justify division between A and B? There are other parts of the city where the entirety of the geographic area pays rural A, even though transit's nowhere close.
The definitions of A and B have been set by council, and council has, in doing so, made the opinion that that the allocations are fair.
Sure, that's largely based on advice from staff, though. So I'm saying if we're going to be having a large commercial expansion in a rural area, and we're talking about enhancing service to integrate it to a private shuttling system, and as a result, residents are now much closer to rapid transit than they ever were before, how can we continue to justify a disparity of treatment between residents in one part of the city and the rest in terms of how much they pay in taxes?
Mr. Chair, there's no proposal here to increase transit service.
I just thought we were going to look at how we can increase transit service to integrate to the private shuttling system.
No, that's the direction in this report. The direction that the committee would give would be to integrate the information about the private shuttle into the information that we provide online to our customers.
Well, there are residents in Cumberland Ward that pay the full freight of rural A that are farther away from mass transit than residents south of Mitch Owens are, and it's not entirely clear to me that that justification can be continued.
Yes, I think that might be a conversation for another day. But certainly the zones that exist today, the RTA A and the RTA B zones, are pre-amalgamation zones. It's the townships. Osgood Township isn't.
They were established by council after amalgamation in about 2000.
They are consistent with
2003
before amalgamation with the region, right? Because Osgood was never part of that.
There were some differences, but not in the Osgood area. In Osgood, it was about introducing paratranspo service back in 2002.
Right. All right. Any questions further? No further questions for staff? All right. All right. Well, thank you. We'll go through. Yeah. If you want to wrap up, if there's a wrap-up conversation, sure. Councillor Deans?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a few words about all of this, and I do have some broader concerns about the whole expansion of gaming at this site, but I'm not going to talk about that today, because what I really want to talk about today is mostly transportation and transit and access to that site and the impact that it has on all of our local communities. And I want to say that you, Mr. Chair, and Councillor DeRose and Councillor Kakish and the city staff and the proponent, we've all worked, I think, really hard together to try and make sure that this is as good as it's going to be, because I think we all recognize that this is going to pass. And so for the people that I represent, I have to make sure that their lives are not adversely impacted to the extent possible by the increase in traffic to the site. So to that end, I think it's really important that we recognize that Highway 31 or Bank Street is a more appropriate front entranceway to a new and expanded gaming facility than Albion Road, which was never intended to carry that type of traffic. So embedded in the report is a recommendation to de-emphasize the Albion Road entrance, and I agree with that. I think that's very important. It will be very important to the people in Blossom Park. Also, the motion that Councillor DeRose has introduced on my behalf for the area traffic management study in Blossom Park, and the commitment that you heard from the proponent today that they would participate in the implementation of the results of the ATM are very important. I think the other part that will be very important is to make sure that Bank Street is the new entrance and that we have expanded capacity on Bank Street to deal with the increase in traffic. And I recognize that the south end is growing rapidly and that the road infrastructure just is not there even now. So with the expansion of gaming there, it's just going to exacerbate the problem. So I do think that the holding zone is an appropriate thing to place while we try and work out the details of how we can reasonably move people to and from that site without having major traffic impacts on the rest of the community. And so, and also, as far as the transit piece goes, I do think it's important that regardless of where you live, if you want to use public transit to get to the site, that you are able to find your way. So as long as they're going to continue to run a shuttle service from the Greenboro station, I think that the transit planner will be important to assist people in getting there. And regardless where you live in the city, that you can find your way through using transit services as opposed to driving. And, you know, this kind of use does tend to promote drinking. Lots of people go and have dinner, they go to a show, they go to a racetrack, they have a drink, they go to the casino, they have a drink, and I think that we want to make sure that people can use other forms of transportation other than the car and a driver when in a facility like that. So I think it will be very important to work that out. So with that said, I would just say that a lot of the concerns I have, I believe through this process and through the good faith that the staff have shown and Councillor Darouze has shown and you, Mr. Chair, we should be able to work all these things out. And I've appreciated the cooperation that we have seen throughout this process so far. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and obviously appreciate your attendance here today. We, be honest, we don't get a ton of other councillors at our committees, so it's nice to have you here. Or media, like John and Laura. So we'll just go right to the motions. I don't think. Oh, sorry, just a quick question from Councillor El Shantiri for Legal Services.
I've seen both legal here, and it's the time to ask them a question. So, Councillor Darouze moving a motion here on behalf of Councillor Dean, and I don't want to take that as the issue here, but in the future, can we do something in governing? Maybe the new term of council. If a councillor wants a motion be moved about something and then they vote against that report altogether, would that be possible? The motion will be defeated automatically? Because I find it ironically we have some motion on a report and then all of a sudden we vote against the report as a whole. So is there something we can streamline in the future with the governor?
Mr. Chair, we'll certainly look at it. I'm not aware of any mechanism today, but we are going down governance this summer, meeting with members and staff, so we will. I'd like
to add this to our governance review, if you don't mind. And it's not just about this motion; it's just in general. Thank you.
Thank you. So to go through the three motions, I'll personally just go through the last the resolution of each. So the first motion, the site plan alteration. Site plan alteration. That's a whole other thing for later. I was combining two things. There's site alteration, there's site plan. I just stuck them together. All right. So that Agricultural Affairs Committee recommend that Council direct staff to undertake community consultations for any future site plan control applications, and that these consultations include public meetings organized by the applicant in collaboration with staff and the ward councillor, and which by request of another ward councillor by mutual agreement may occur outside the local ward. On that motion? Carried. On the infrastructure improvements motion, from Councillor Kakish through Councillor Darouze, be it resolved that prior to submission of the zoning bylaw to Council, the General Manager, Planning, Infrastructure, and Economic Development confirm to the Mayor and members of Council that a letter from Hard Rock Casino Ottawa has been received that provides a commitment from Hard Rock Casino Ottawa to work with staff, area councillors, and other landowners on improvements and infrastructure that assists in improving local traffic conditions. This commitment shall include continued discussions on the following items: a private driveway on Hard Rock Casino lands to Bank Street, a front ending of a portion of Earl Armstrong to Bank, and or constructing a driveway through Earl Armstrong alignment in lieu of a parkway a private driveway connection, working with the developers in Leitrim on front-ending improvements of Bank Street, and working with the city on front-ending intersection improvements at Albion and Leicester. On that motion? Thank you. And then the final motion on the area traffic management study from Councillor Deans through Councillor DeRuse. Be it resolved that the following recommendation be added to the staff report, that Transportation Services be directed to undertake an area traffic management study for Albion Road between Bank Street and Leicester in 2019, notwithstanding the council-approved screening and prioritization process for ATM studies, that $75,000 in funding for the area traffic management study set aside in 2011 be reinstated, and 3, that an additional $75,000 be provided to complete the study, and that the associated cost of the study be derived from the City of Ottawa one-time and unforeseen account. On that motion? Carried. Then on the reports in itself, that the Agriculture Rural Affairs Committee recommend Council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 to define casino and to amend exception 528R for 4837 Albion Road and 4910 Bank Street by adding a hotel with a 9-story height limit, permitting 55 gaming tables for a casino, and to put in place a holding provision as detailed in documents 2, 3, and 4, and 2, the Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee approved the consultation details section of this report. So on the report as amended, carried. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Allison.
So on to item number 6, which is the site alteration bylaw. For those that were in attendance last month, they'll recall that we did deal with this last month, but we referred it back to committee through council to make some changes to the language and to clear up some issues surrounding section 10, which is now the new section 11, and also on the agricultural exemption. And I just want to introduce a motion. We do have 2 speakers on it, but I do want to introduce this motion first. It's from did you want to introduce it, Councillor Chantieri? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I can read the motions just to put it in context, Mr. Chair, is where the report was considered and carried by Planning Committee at the meeting of 27 February 2018, and whereas the report was considered and carried as amended by the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee at its meeting April 5th, 2018, and whereas the Agriculture Rural Affairs Committee directed staff to make certain changes to the draft bylaw and bring it back to their next meeting, and whereas the rural residents have expressed concern about the potential of the draft bylaw to restrict normal farm practices, therefore be it resolved that staff amend section 2 of the draft bylaw to use the same wording about the preservation of normal farm practice as a Farming and Food Production Protection Act 1998, such wording being, this bylaw shall not apply to restrict a normal farm practice carry on a part of the agricultural operation. That's what the motion is, Mr. Chair, as we heard from the folks from the farming community, and I believe you were engaged back and forth with them via email, and this is a result I think staff will support it. Has this motion been prepared by staff?
Thank you. Yes, so when the revision came forward of the bylaw, it included a new section 2, which spoke to farming. This is just alternate wording that the committee, I feel, is more comfortable with in the bylaw going forward, and I feel addresses the concerns more appropriately from what we heard previously from delegations here last month and from the community as a whole throughout the conversation that we had. Did you want to do? I'm not sure if there's need for presentation. I mean, I think this. I think the folks here.
We're at your disposal, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to go straight to the delegations then. So our first speaker is Mr. Paul Johannes. We just need to return a microphone. Oh, just grab that one there. Yeah, you're good. Oh, no, you're not.
No.
There, now you're good.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Just a quick intervention. You'll recall perhaps from the last meeting that one of our main concerns, I'm Paul Johannes with the Green Space Alliance, by the way, and so one of the main concerns that I brought up at the last meeting of IRAC on this was the issue of the preemptive clearing of woodlands in the immediate vicinity of the urban boundary. This is something that I think all agreed was something that we wanted to try and get a handle on. So, on that issue, I think the amended bylaw coming forward with the new Schedule B following Councillor El-Shantiri's motion really helps to define what is that peri-urban area. I think staff have provided an operationalization of that concept that's very useful, and we're pleased to see that because it provides a real focus for the kind of, I would say, sort of regulation in a way of that particular activity that's not really required in the broader rural area, but that in that sort of what I call the peri-urban area is a very good initiative, I think. So we would certainly support that. The restriction of the approval required by the general manager, planning, infrastructure, and economic development to just that area and the urban area with respect to vegetation removal will go a long way towards dealing with this issue of preemptive clearing, I believe. It's not really a permitting system, but it is a pre-approval. It does provide an opportunity to require an environmental impact statement. It does provide an opportunity to regulate. It doesn't prevent it, but it provides a good framework for dealing with it. So we're very pleased to see that. Now, the types of areas that are covered by this within the peri-urban area are natural environment areas, urban natural features, rural natural features, and parts of the natural heritage system that are shown in Schedules L. Those are all very large types of natural features, and that will go a long way towards really dealing with all of the types of preemptive clearing that we're concerned about. But there still remains a small gap, and that is if you've got a 5-acre woodlot somewhere in this peri-urban area, it won't be covered by one of these major types of natural environment areas. And so there would still be, perhaps opportunity to remove these preemptively, even though they would be very desirable features to have in an urban area should the area be brought into the urban boundary following an urban expansion. So first, I'd just like to recognize the work that's been done on the site alteration bylaw to deal with this. I think it's a very, very good framework. And I think now we have, within a bylaw, a definition of what this peri-urban area is, that perhaps either the significant woodland policy, which is being worked on now, or the urban tree conservation bylaw, which is up for review, could use the same kind of framework to deal with these smaller natural areas that wouldn't be covered by the current text of the site alteration bylaw. So that was my only comment with respect to the draft that's before us now.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for speaking. Questions? No? So our next speaker on this item is Ted Wood. Mr. Wood, thank you for being here. Thank you for your interventions last month and for your cooperation on this file over the last, I don't know, I feel like we've been doing this for like 2 years.
18 months at least.
18 months, there you go. Overshot it.
Actually, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Committee, for allowing me to speak one more time. I just basically have very minor comments. Thank you. I want to thank the Committee for its understanding and perseverance in fine-tuning the bylaw, and I want to say that I fully support Councillor El-Shantiri's motion. I want to just explain how I got into this, because I wasn't looking to get into all this farming stuff. I'm not a real farmer. In fact, our neighbors who are farmers will tell you I'm not a farmer. I can kill any number of things, but growing them seems to be beyond my ability. I started out providing comments on this on behalf of the Ontario Woodlot Association, Lower Ottawa Valley Chapter. we had seen this bylaw as a potential for introducing an inducement or an incentive to woodlot owners to get a forest management plan. Didn't quite work out that way. There are some provisions for it, but we were hoping a little more explicitly. I encourage the committee to look at this issue at the 2-year review as an opportunity to address ways to encourage woodlot owners to get and implement a management plan. As an aside, I would also encourage the city itself to update its management plan for its forested lands, such as the Marlborough Forest. A managed forest is more productive no matter what its objectives. If it's carbon sequestration, if it's wildlife habitat, if it's tourism. It's interesting to note that within the Lower Ottawa Valley chapter of the Ontario Woodlot Association, most of our members have a management plan, and almost none of these plans include timber production. It's all for other values, including just making the forest grow better. And I would just add that I'm happy to work with staff if they want either myself or anyone within the board. Finally, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the city for providing the snow plows, the ambulance, the fire trucks for Touch a Truck at North Gore on Sunday. It was really very special. My grandson enjoyed it almost as much as his grandfather. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And one final speaker, Sheila Perry, the Federation of Citizens Associations. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and councillors, for the opportunity to speak. It's not very frequent we have the opportunity since we have so many issues with the inner urban, but as the urban area
we all have a lot of issues with the inner urban area too, but
yeah, well, it's very interesting following the last presentation and all, but quite frankly, the site alteration bylaw is good news. The review period, just so you know, we have a planning and zoning committee with the FCA, and we are all about creating great neighborhoods and promoting community associations in them. So that being said, when you look at particularly the infill, and as we grow, there's no doubt you're seeing that in these outlying areas, you know, as we go Finley Creek and beyond. We are concerned about that monitoring, first of all, the rules that are around that, and the communications with the neighbors. That is a critical piece. So we support what the staff certainly has worked closely with us, and we're very happy about that, and we want to support that going forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you. I think it's one of those things that you almost don't really want to have to need this for that purpose. I think in a lot of cases, you look at the Nepean Woods, you look at two significant woodlots in Manotick that have recently been acquired by the city through cooperation with the property developer, the landowner in that case. Those are the ideal situations, that you don't even have to worry about someone touching that forested land, that they see the value in it through what it can bring to the new development. They work with the city to ensure that it's in proper hands when it's all said and done. Unfortunately, every now and then we do see a land clearing situation, whether it's to manipulate lands for I guess a downgraded Lear score, or just for large scale development. So you need these kind of things for that reason. You don't really want to need it, but I think for the most part, I would think the rule is more that we do have that cooperation with our developers in the area, that we don't ever have to worry about this to a large degree. But, thanks for your group's involvement in this as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just want to get so we're going to questions to Ms. Perry. Oh, sorry, Sheila. Oh no, it's a question to staff. I'm sorry. No, Sheila. Sorry, I was wrong. It's a question to staff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Sheila, for being here. Anyway, I want to thank all the speakers, and I want to thank also Ms. Dolan. She's sitting in the crowd, and there is a lots of work happen, and I want to thank staff for the report and the clarification for our residents, specifically in the rural area. But I feel so bad that Mr. Chapman has been here all day and no one asked him questions. So I'd like to ask you a question. Would you mind coming to the mic? I know that.
In fairness, I was going to ask you for clarity on something anyway, so.
Sorry, Scott. Thank you, Mr. Chapman, and I really appreciate you being here with us today. I know it's been a long day for you, but that's one of a regular, normal work day for you. But every time you see the word bylaw, I make me think. And I know in my, what I'm thinking right now, which is how this is going to impact your workload and how you're going to, how is your planning and your work plan. Did we increase your budget for be able to doing all these new bylaw enforcement, or can you maybe share your thought with this committee how you're going to be able to handle this workload?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have had some discussions. We have expressed our concerns about increase in service requests for us to respond to, and expressed our concerns about being at our max capacity and not being able to take on any additional work. The problem here is that there's multiple bylaws that are being taken into one bylaw here, and there's other departments that do some of the enforcement of the site plan, the site alteration bylaw. Ours primarily will be around the drainage ditches and things like that. So. It's difficult for us to anticipate how much additional work this will entail for us. So we're going to monitor closely over the next 6 months to a year, and certainly if we see a large impact on our operation, we'll certainly report back on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you think we can ask Mr. Chapman? I know this is. Are we having a 2-year review on that? Can we make sure that we also have the bylaw? Circulation of the bylaw review and input back to the report when it comes back to council, and if there is any implication onto the budget or the resources that it's been added to?
Yeah, I would imagine that was that was planning to be part of the process. Yes, okay, perfect. It's already committed.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So just while we're here, on Section 13, and I know we had this discussion last month. There was some clarity added to the bylaw to a degree to make sure it aligns with the Municipal Act. But in terms of the concern with powers of entry, can either legal staff or yourself, Mr. Chapman, just speak to what that process would be? What kind of assurance can a property owner have that it's not just it's not just Steve Willis showing up in I don't know what you drive, but let's just say it's a Buick Regal, just showing up on your property and you don't even know who he is. It's like, who is this imposing individual that I don't want on my yard? How do you make sure that the proper identification, not just a badge, but like obviously when bylaw shows up, you know it's bylaw. There's a city vehicle, there's the uniform. What kind of assurance can we give that? Is that? I think that's kind of the point.
Mr. Chair, you're looking at me, so I'll start off, although I'm certain that Mr. Chapman knows a whole lot more about this than I do. But the Municipal Act provides that notice has to be given, that identification has to be provided, and that absent a warrant, you can't go into a dwelling unit. And you have to be authorized by the city to attend upon the property. So there are all these guarantees that are built into the Municipal Act when enforcement is taking place.
All right, so the fear of Steve Willis showing up at my house when I'm digging a ditch illegally is like I'm going to get forewarned? The answer is yes. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So, Councillor Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to follow up on that piece. What we discussed last time is not what city staff will do. They will follow all the rules as Mr. Mark outlined, and as Mr. Chapman has said, his officers will come in uniform and in a city marked car. It's the other departments that we're talking about that could show up. We want to make sure that they have at least a city vehicle, because we know there's scam artists out there, and this is what we want to protect people against. that will show up at the door and say they're from the City of Ottawa, and can you show me your water bill, can you show me your hydro bill, whatever they want access to. That's what we want to try to protect people. So if we can assure rural residents that if we are coming out to their property to do with this bylaw, it will be, as Mr. Mark said, some sort of advance notice. But I think what all the members of the committee wanted to get at last time was that a city employee will clearly be identified by either the vehicle or a uniform, something more than just someone showing up at the door saying, I'm from the city. I don't know. Can you answer that, Mr. Mark, or is this...
Mr. Chair, I'll start off. The legislation requires that the person have identification and that they be authorized by the city, that they have identification, and that they give notice. So any city staff person or agent of the city, be it Mr. Chapman, be it the general manager, has to meet those requirements. Regretfully, that's not going to stop somebody else from showing up without those elements, but if they don't, I hope that the resident will ask, show me your identification, and you didn't tell me you were coming, I'm not letting you on my property. A resident does have to take some safeguards with respect to persons who come to his or her door.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Did you have anything to add to that, Mr. Chapman, or is that...
No, I think it's been captured. I mean, it's we have for bylaw and regulatory services, we have standard operating procedures that our officers have to follow, and part of that is showing identification before they enter a property, and part of the reason for that is collecting evidence and testifying in court. You have to be able to prove that you did that. That was part of the process before starting your investigation. So,
okay, thank you. Any other questions on the bylaw? No. Just want to thank staff for their work in the last month on creating the map, on altering section what is now section 11 with the attached map as Schedule B, and then on your work on section 2 as well. Just appreciate taking the time to allow us to go through that and to come back. This report will go to council on May 9th for final approval. So on the amendment from Councillor Chantieri to alter the wording in section 2 to state that this bylaw shall not apply to restrict a normal farm practice carried on as part of an agricultural operation. On that motion? Carried. And on the, just bear with me here. And on the report that Agricultural Affairs recommend council approve the revised site alteration bylaws attached as document 1, and 2, direct staff to conduct a review of the site alteration bylaw 2 years after its approval and report back on its performance and any recommended improvements. The report carried as amended. Thank you. Right, thank you. All right, so that's it for our regular agenda. In-camera items, there are none. Information previously distributed. We all received the Ottawa Rural Clean Water Grant Program 2017 annual report. Open mic session. There are no one signed up for that. Notice of motion, none. Inquiries, none. Other business, none. On adjournments, carried. Our next meeting will be Thursday, June 7th. Except for Eli and George, you get to come out with me to North Gore again and do Court of Revision Part 2 on Monday nights. He can't. He's not allowed.
I missed the first.